You might not think it, but I did take a short break, put on a little music, Pandora.com, and this is Under Your Spell by Cosmic Gate. But we probably should get to it. So let's see. Solve x squared plus 6x plus 8 equals 1 by completing the square. And then second question, what is the vertex of the parabola? Again, this is part 2 to completing the square. We got 2 problems to do. Let's get right to it. Let's move the 8 to the right-hand side. So in this case, b equals 6. So b over 2 squared is going to be, do not do 36 divided by 4. 6 divided by 3, 6 divided by 2 is 3, squared is 9. So we're going to add 9 to both sides. So we have this. Now if you added 9 to both sides, like in the last 3 problems, guys, if you add something to one side, you need to add the same thing to the right-hand side. This here, parentheses, parentheses, squared. X, the square root of x squared is x. This is a plus, bring down a plus. This is plus 9, the square root of 9 is 3, equals 2. So let's see, we want to solve this and then find the vertex. So if I'm going to solve this, I'm just going to square root both sides straight away. If you introduce the square root, you need to put plus or minus. So subtracting 3, notice that this negative 3 is outside of the radical. Probably a better way to write this, in the more proper way, is this. I'll write down best. Okay, so the answer is negative 3 plus or minus root 2. Now we're going to find the vertex. We're going to come back here. This is like saying y equals x plus 3 squared minus 2. This is vertex form. So that's going to be a vertex of negative 3, comma, negative 2. All right. That was example 4. We have a relatively difficult problem to finish with. So take a deep breath. We're trying to complete the square to solve 7x squared equals x plus 8. Okay, you notice here, this 7 you cannot have. It needs to be a 1. So leading coefficient must be 1. So leading coefficient must be 1. So we're going to divide by 7. There's my first step. Okay. I'm going to move the b term here to the left-hand side. So, guys, in this case, b is negative 1/7. Dividing that by 2 puts a little 2 right next to the 7, and the whole thing is squared. I really shouldn't say b equals, but negative 1 squared is 1, and this becomes 14 times 14. I'm adding 1 over 14 times 14 to both sides. I think that's 196, but I think that actually doesn't play into our answer. We don't need to actually know that. But let's see. So if I take x squared minus 1/7 x, and I add 1 over 14 times 14. Again, I'm trying to do this without a calculator. Well, I need to take 8/7 and I need to add the same thing, 1 over 14 times 14. I've just completed the square. The left-hand side here, the x squared, becomes an x. This is a minus, so I put a minus. Now, the square root of 1 is 1, and the square root of 14 times 14 is just 14. So I have x minus 1 over 14 squared. Now that equals 8/7 plus 1 over 14 times 14. I need to get a common denominator of 14 times 14. So you notice I'm definitely going to have a plus 1. But I need to multiply the numerator here. If there's a 7 down the denominator, well, 7 times 2 is 14. So I actually need 8 times 2. 8 times 2 would give me 8 over 7, but I also need another 14. So I actually need to multiply the top by 28. So let me write that more clearly. So I need 8 times 2 times 14 plus 1 over 14 times 14. Okay, so let's do this math. I think I used a calculator, possibly. This is 28 times 8, which is 224. So the math isn't that bad. You wouldn't need a calculator. There's 14 squared. So now, this is 225. So actually I'm going to say this equals 225 over 14 squared. When I take the square root of both sides, again, remember, I'm introducing the square root. I need to do plus or minus. The square root of 225 is 15. The square root of 14 squared is 14. So I got my answers right now. So let's do this out real quick. 15 over 14 plus 1 over 14 is 16 over 14. 8/7. And then negative, so a second answer, negative 15 over 14 plus 1 over 14 is negative 1. That's a difficult problem. You have to be very good with fractions. Okay? What were the key skills practiced today? We completed the square and we proved the quadratic formula and we found a vertex, and if I just look back at my work, there's lots that we did. We factored, we practiced simplifying radicals, we square rooted both sides of an equation. Again, I said we proved the quadratic formula. We even dealt with answers that were like x equals a plus or minus square root of b form. So there's tons of stuff you could say for that one. One thing I would say, actually, when you complete the square, one thing I'd point out, the leading term must be 1x squared. Alright, so we're going to take this song into the break, and I'll see you tomorrow.